Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I welcome you all to ET Retail webinar. To present this webinar, I welcome Pinaki Ranjan Mishra, Partner and National Leader, Retail and Consumer Products, Ernst & Young. On the topic is Omnichannel Retailing, the New Normal. There will be a presentation on the topic, followed by a question and answer session, wherein you can submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the question pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Now I would like to invite Pinaki Ranjan Mishra to start the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot and good afternoon to all of you. I think there's a reason why we called it is Omnichannel Retail the New Normal. Because if you look at past 5 years, there have been a lot of discussions on omnichannel, on retail, a lot of discussion on online. And as we look back at the last 5 years, there are two things that we realized. One is that brick and mortar retail has probably not disappeared as many people had predicted. It's still there. Is it thriving? Probably not in all places. Has online taken away bulk of the market share? The answer is again no. Are they thriving? Again in parts, probably again not doing too well, some with very few exceptions. So probably what it means, and as I'll take you through, you'll realize why I'm saying that probably it's a middle path. In life, we've always seen a middle path always works probably better in life. Probably so it will be in retail. So I'll go to my first slide. So why do we see Indian retail? Indian retail is fairly underpenetrated. Indian consumption is extremely below the global norms. So we are a nation which is pretty much one of the top in consumption in many sectors, but at the same time fairly underpenetrated and underconsumed as a nation. And because of that, we expect the next 5-6 years will be extremely healthy from a retail perspective. The CAGR is 10 to 12%, which in a base like ours is pretty large. A modern retail, which has probably reached around 10%, will almost reach about 15%. That's a 50% growth, mind you, in the next 5 years or so. So there are lots happening in the sector. The outlook is extremely robust, which is shown ups and downs once in a while that we see in any business. But the general outlook of retail is quite positive in the next immediate future. I wouldn't say just 5 years, but in the immediate future. Now, what's the reason for that? One is, of course, our macroeconomic factors are quite robust. In spite of all the ups and downs we have seen in the globe, and it's not about there have been several incidents, both in terms of safety, security, business upturn. Currency, issues. There are many upheavals we have seen in the last few years, and in spite of all of that, we still continue to have a reasonably good growth, and our macroeconomic factors are quite intact. The second is, of course, favorable demographic profile. We all know we are a young nation. We are a nation that consumes a large part of what we produce. It's a nation that produces a lot of talent which is necessary for any growth. And finally, last but not the least, every growth requires good regulatory reforms. I think the government has taken a few of them. There are a few more that are in the offing. But overall, if you look at the scenario, it's quite positive, and hence we feel that Indian retail is poised for a fairly healthy growth. But having said that, there are several things that are also disrupting the sector. At the end of the day, a sector progresses only when it's profitable, it's viable, it generates the right kind of win-win for everybody who's associated with the sector in general. So, but some of the infrastructure changes are fairly disruptive. I think the number one is the whole environment of retail itself. I mean, while mom and pop stores continue to rule the roost, and I think they will continue to do so in the immediate future, the quality of the merchandise that they need to keep, the quality of information they need to gather, the quality of service they need to provide might undergo quite a radical change. The good part is most of these people realize that, and many of them have adapted themselves quite well to, for example, services like home delivery, services like better merchandising, pretty well. Giving, in fact, the modern retail a run for their money. Today, if you want home delivery, they're pretty much able to do that. Today, if you want them to source something that they don't have, they pretty much pick it up from the neighboring store, collect payment, and help close the transaction. So they are incredibly capable to change themselves and move with the times. The second important disruption that is happening is actually beyond the retail sector. That's more on technology and mobile. And this is where I think it is important for our sector to ensure that we are in step with what's happening, we are in step with the tech changes, we are in step with what the consumers want, the kind of speed they want it. I mean, earlier people could wait for a few days, today they are not willing to wait. So how do we as a sector or as a group make the most of these changes and ensure that our future strategy is aligned to what changes are happening in the infrastructure sector? Having said that, my next slide is probably a cartoon that I picked up from the web. It's an interesting cartoon because this is something probably all of us have done several times in our buying life. You go to a store, find out the right product, then go online, check it out, and buy. And as you say, recent survey by UPS showed that 38% of consumers leverage multiple channels. This is, of course, US data. I wouldn't be surprised if Indian data is quite large amongst the population that serves the internet. Now, what does it show? It shows two things. On one hand, I mean, it might show that, okay, fine, if this is what happens, then the offline store is pretty much dead because everybody will go to the offline store, then go and buy online at a cheaper price, and the whole store loses the sale. But look at it from other side of other point of view. What happens to the online store? Then the online store, the only option for an online store to sell is basically providing a cheaper price. And in a competitive environment, in an environment where margins are scarce, if you have to always discount them, what does it do to your business model? And I think that's what has happened in the last 5 years. To my mind, initially everybody thought that, okay, if we go online, offline and use them just to browse and go online and buy, it will basically mean death of one format at the cost of someone else. But reality is a little different. Reality also is that stores need to be profitable, and online also needs to be profitable. And once we get change the game of profitability, I think this doesn't look as bleak as it sounds. I don't think if customers do not get that lowest point or do not get a significant difference, they will just go to the store and then hop online to buy. So that's where the whole middle ground, that's where the whole omnichannel comes in. So on one hand, we have consumers who are looking at multiple options and multiple channels. On the second hand, we have suppliers, somebody who is offering service, somebody who is offering a larger merchandise, somebody offering the cut price. And I think somewhere the answer lies in between. It's not absolute. And if you look at the Indian context today, if you look at all the online players, and I'm talking of primarily of goods here right now, because we're talking of retail, not of services, there is hardly any story that is profitable yet. And this is the reason that at some point you have to understand how to make it a profitable, as do the offline channel. The online channel also needs to look at that. So is there a marriage possible? And what's happening around the world? What are we seeing? If we look at now online and store sales, I think what's very important to understand is that while the retail is going to grow at 10 to 12%, online retail is what will take a bulk of the growth. I think that is significant, which means that the offline retail will not die, they will continue to grow. And I will share some numbers of how it looks globally, which is why I'm saying that. But at the same time, the new growth will come from online. The new growth will come from the newer channels. And hence is the need for stores or offline channel to understand how growth is happening, to understand what this online is all about. Because if all the new consumers are going to change their preference of buying to online, and online doesn't mean pure play online. Basically, they'll want to buy through the app, they'll buy through the mobile phone, they'll buy through voice, and they'll buy through the web. What does it mean for those players? And assuming that we are also bringing in a layer of profitability growth along with business. So it's not just growth at the cost of profitability, it's actually profitable growth. And that's where I think the main part of this whole omnichannel starts. That when you look at profitable growth, it is not either or, it's probably a bit of both that is necessary for success. So if you look at the store, I think people pretty much wrote off a lot of stores a few years back when this whole omni-channel or whole online channel started. But if you look at revenues today, I doubt if there is a single market in the world where stores, physical stores, are not selling almost 90% of the goods. In most geographies and many of them Western, the sales is actually less than 5%. And again, I'm here talking about goods, not services. In US, it is less than 10%. So it is in Canada. So it is in Japan. So it is in UK, where 90% of sales still comes through the traditional channel. However, what is important to understand is if I take the total growth of next 5 to 10 years, probably bulk of the growth will move to online, or a large part of the growth, if not the bulk, will move to online. And I think that's where it is important to understand how stores are able to leverage on omni-channel to capture these consumers, how they are able to leverage omni-channel to actually deliver growth. At the current level, even if we look at the best possible option for online, we're still saying from 90% in 5 years, it will probably move to 85%. It's a 50% growth, but at the same time, don't forget that 85% will come from stores still. And which means that people will still prefer to go to stores. People will still visit the stores. They will probably visit online as well, probably much more, but still they will transact a substantial part of their purchases through stores. If we look at the growth of omni-channel, growth of e-commerce channels in the next few years, you notice that some of the biggest growth drivers will come from this channel. And if you look at the data, I mean, India is where, if you look at the store growth delivered by stores vis-a-vis growth delivered by omni-channel or online channel, I think it will almost be 3.5 times. That's quite significant. If you look at US, it's 10 to 12 times. If you look at BRIC countries, almost 5 times. And that's why omni-channel is the new normal. And that's the reason why retailers need to look at omni-channel seriously if they want to survive and grow in the long term. It doesn't mean that they will die. It doesn't mean that everybody will move to e-com. It's not possible, because there are many items where people want to have the touch and feel. They want to have an experience. And if you look at the new millennial consumers, a lot of them are actually buying experience. A lot of them are paying for experience in other areas, not necessarily in retail. If you look at many areas of spend today, travel and leisure is taking a bulk of the spend. Why? Because people want experience. They just don't want products. We have big brands facing a big threat. Why? Because people are preferring authentic products. People are not necessarily going for the big brands all the time. They're looking at products which are authentic, which deliver better experience, which makes them feel nice. So if the product has probably a good quotient of social in it, people prefer that. So a lot of these trends will be driven along with this whole retail story, which is why going omnichannel will play a very important role for any retail company. Now, having said that, how does it look? So what does the future of omnichannel look like? I think there will be significant convergence of online and offline. This is probably the most important factor that we'll see in the whole retail sphere. And that the second part will, people will go for experience, as I mentioned, that experience could be online, it will be offline, but it will be a bit of both. Third is, we expect the stores to undergo a lot of transformation. I think there is an example that I have in my presentation. That's a pretty, probably looks like an extreme example today. But let's not undermine the rapid change at which we are seeing retail undergoing the transformation, and is a time when stores will see a lot of transformation. There could be a lot of commerce over the voice. So a lot of times we don't have time, or we don't understand everything. If there is the voice recognition software, the artificial intelligence is developed to such a large extent that there could be a significant opportunity of actually talking to my phone and getting the right product, finding out which is the right store, what is the best price. Today it's possible to probably talk to mobile phone and get the 2 best stores nearby, or get the best price that is available on the net. So these kind of technologies will have a big impact on omnichannel. Somewhere the physical stores need to incorporate this in the future. lot of business could be done through subscriptions. Why? Because the cost of selling a subscription is probably the lowest, and the demand becomes almost like a demand that is almost captured by the retailer. Also, it can be easily predicted. So subscription will play a big role. A lot of consumer companies will go direct to consumer, and I'm not surprised by this trend, because if you look at the power of online and the ease at which you can reach to consumer, many FMCG companies themselves are thinking of reaching out to consumers directly. I mean, it's probably starting small now with some acquisitions in some cases through building a website, but it's a matter of time where there would be some brands and some parts of the product where they would want to go to consumers directly. Again, primarily for two reasons. One is to, of course, have business, but more importantly, also to get a lot of insights, which they today are not very dependent on retailers to get there. There is also an issue of mass personalization. How do we ensure that we are able to deliver personal products to people which they desire, and at the same time in a scale that is mass? Today, technologies are quite new. I think they're probably at the infancy, if I may say so. But again, it's a matter of time where these things will become mainstream and will have a huge impact on retail companies. From a 5-year perspective, will all of them have a big impact? The answer clearly is no. Will they have a big impact over 10 to 15 years? The answer is clearly yes. So some of the areas where we feel there'll be huge impact, or we are already seeing an impact, let me go through some of the areas I just spoke to. So let's look at why I am saying online and offline have to coexist, and why. I mean, Amazon is the biggest online player, but whenever they have tried offline, or in many sectors, they have not been fully successful. I mean, grocery is a great example where Amazon has tried its hands for several times. It's not worked. And we recently saw the acquisition of Whole Foods by Amazon, and one of the primary reasons is to have this omni-channel presence, is to ensure that not only do they sell online, but they also have an offline presence to support the online sales, and that probably could be a big opportunity for them to succeed in a category like grocery, which otherwise is very difficult to do purely online. Let's look at an Indian player, Lenskart. Now, Lenskart started primarily through online stores, and why do they have today offline? And if you know the model, there has been significant success once they have gone offline. There's tremendous involvement with their consumers, with the offline stores, and they have seen business go significantly high once they had this online-offline model. And why is this happening? Why is Lenskart so successful in this omni-channel model? There are many categories of products where we would want a little bit more involvement, maybe an apparel, maybe food, maybe when you buy a specs. There are some where the involvement is required, but probably in electronics and services where probably I trust an online retailer, I'll buy online. But in many of the goods, they will need some kind of assurance that there is somebody available if I have a problem. There is somebody available to show me the product and explain the product, and there is somebody available to sell online if necessary. And that's where I think this whole omni-channel play comes in. These are two great examples. Amazon, of course, is a recent acquisition, but I am quite convinced that they will make it a success in the long run. Lenskart is a great example from India itself, which has done very good work on omnichannel, but the reverse. So coming from online back to offline. The second part I mentioned was about experience. Now, how much of experience will dominate sales is still to be answered. I don't think the answer is there yet. But at the same time, how much will it help in establishing a brand? How much will it help in engaging consumers is a no-brainer. There is a significant opportunity to engage, significant opportunity to build brand, and hence probably have a rub-off on retail, probably both online and offline, through places which provide experience. And there are two examples. One is the Nike Futurist store in New York, which is a pretty large store with 5 floors, almost 50,000 square feet plus. It has a lot of products. It has a lot of areas providing knowledge about sports, knowledge about health, and also it allows in-house expert advice. Will this go mainstream? Will we have all stores like this? No, it's not. It's probably not commercially viable. But will it have a big impact on retail business? The answer clearly is yes. So how do offline stores become more and more experiential in nature? How do they differentiate? And don't forget, one of these reasons why we want to do all this is also to differentiate. I mean, there's a big compete. Everybody has omni-channel, and these are the strategies that retailers will employ to differentiate themselves, to have more and more engagement with consumers, and also to understand consumers better, and probably at some stage when personalization becomes more mass, to even use these stores for personalization. The second part also is our Fab India, which is our very own domestic retailer, which has an experiential store in Delhi with almost 5 floors. They have a lot of in-store offerings, the wellness center, they have counselors, they have cafes serving organized food. And why? Because all of this somehow adds to the brand of the Fab India, which is what they stand for, and this is how they want to drive their consumers. So this is how today we are seeing retailers both in India and global adding experience to the whole buying process. And this is a critical component of also their overall long-term strategy of going omni-channel, because till a long time ago, it was only one-sided. So one kind of experience was there on the store, one type of experience was there in the site. But today, I think they are merging. So you will have a lot of digital experience in stores, and which will help them providing a very seamless experience on the omni-channel. So will there be checkout lines, or sometimes will the store come to you? These are all new models. So sometimes, as we all know, convenience is a big factor of online retail. I mean, if you look at one single aspect of online success, it has been convenience. So what do the stores do? How do they provide convenience to consumers? And beat the online players at their own game. I mean, Amazon is a great example. They themselves have an offline channel called Amazon Go, where shoppers can scan a QR code. They don't have to check out. They will automatically get an invoice and make a payment through the app because the card is already stored. It will automatically understand what products the customer has bought and give them the invoice, and then just check out. And this is one good way in which an offline store can provide a kind of convenience which is probably today exclusively available online. Look at MobiMart. Prototype of the supermarket comes home. I mean, we have seen a lot of these MobiMart equivalents in India. I mean, cart pullers or small trucks which open their wares in near our houses and deliver products. What if they become AI enabled? What if they become more modern? What if they're able to provide the same convenience that we see here in MobiMart? Is it a distant possibility? The answer is no, because we've seen how mom and pop, how smartly they operate. So tomorrow, technically, there could be a store which comes, drives down near your houses, delivers products, maybe in some category, maybe not in all, probably more in food and grocery, which are daily requirements. So there will be some categories where we will even see this model. This is a model we see quite in India. It is a little rudimentary, perhaps, but what MobiMart has done is probably more evolved, but there is no reason why we can't evolve at a fraction of the cost. The great part about India is that if you look at some of the emerging technologies like telecom, artificial intelligence, we are one of the top 2 or 3 countries globally now in understanding the technologies and leveraging the technology. And it's a matter of time where retailers, and by retailers I just don't mean the big brands, I also mean the mom and pop stores, will adapt them to their own in their own way and serve consumers and give them the convenience they need. Today we've seen mom and pop stores have WhatsApp groups, so they have their own kind of lists circulated through WhatsApp groups, and they're doing good business through those models. So they have smartly adapted some of the disrupting technologies to help in the business model. And as offline retail tries and does that better and better over time, their chances of success are far higher. I mentioned a bit about voice commerce, and I think, I don't know how many of you noticed that Amazon ran a big campaign of selling their Echo devices. I think they started a couple of weeks back, and they said of course it was at a discount, so that and they gave a prime subscription fee as a part of the sale. And why are they doing that? Why do you think Amazon is selling a product like Echo? And what does that Echo device do? It basically listens to what you want and tells. For example, you could probably ask for the weather. You could ask, if you're in Delhi, you could ask, where do I visit? If you want to see historical places, you can even order products from the web. You can call an Uber or a Ola cab through Eco. And that has added another dimension of convenience. So you don't have to walk up to your phone, you don't have to press the button, go to the app and order. You actually can sit in your chair, just tell Eco what to order or what to buy or to hail a cab, and it does that for you. And this could be again a big next thing that we see in retail. And this is a lesson for many offline players as well, because they could do the same. They could also enable their store through this kind of devices. Today, if I can, let's say, call a Uber through Eco, why can't I order something from, let's say, a Shopper Stop or a Lifestyle through a voice-assisted product? So these will have a huge impact, much more than what we see. And again, the reason why I'm saying that is V-commerce will add another dimension of convenience. So one layer of convenience was actually for the customer not to walk up to the store. And imagine how technology has been changing over a period. Initially, what happened is the e-commerce players said, look, you don't have to walk up to the store. You can actually go online, go to your room where your computer is, or go to your office desk and just buy what you want, get whatever information you want. E-commerce is even disrupting that. It's saying you don't even have to walk up and go to your computer, or you go to fetch your mobile phone. You are probably in your bed sleeping, or you're relaxing, having a cup of tea. Just tell your Eco Dot or tell your assistant what you want, and it will order it for you. It's just another layer of convenience. And this is exactly where disruption is coming from. Cutting down increasing the convenience of consumers, cutting down the time to delivery, which I'll come back later on because there's a big learning from that side. So one hand is to make the job of buying easier. When I say easier, by providing a greater range, greater convenience. And second part is then how do we fulfill this to the consumer stage, which is where we talked about personalization, mass personalization, and providing what each consumer needs, maybe in an environment which he or she feels very comfortable. The other big aspect of is subscription. Now, there are many products that we buy quite regularly. What subscription business does quite well, and this is where again FMCG companies themselves could get into it, because it gives them two things. One is the direct access to consumer information and data, and also a good business model, because the consumer doesn't have to go and buy every time. The system knows when he or she needs the product, and basically then the system orders it by itself. So this is another brilliant model for products that are in daily use product. It could be even food and grocery, it could be milk, it could be nappies, it could be diapers, it could be your coffee. There could be many other products where it could be the beauty products, which could sell through this kind of model. Now again, there is a lesson here. Why is this important? Why is it important for today a retailer to understand these nuances of buying? Because there will be somebody who will disrupt. Look at one product we have not spoken about here, pharmacy, for example. If you look at the Indian market, I mean, we have diabetes and heart disease, which are probably the biggest in the world. They are the big part of the whole medicine purchase. All of them are actually amenable to subscription. What happens tomorrow if an online chemist is able to provide this in a far more convenient manner, and the offline chemist hasn't done that? It could disrupt the whole model for chemists, because bulk of their sales probably today come through these kind of products, which are daily needs. And I think that's where this makes it very important. But today an offline chemist could do that. We don't have to depend on an online. My neighborhood chemist can themselves, who would actually deliver to me, itself can set up this whole system. It doesn't cost a lot of money. So this is where again the new kind of buying preferences. So on one hand, we need to understand consumers, how they are buying. On the other hand, we also need to understand how these products are sold, because that will help us position the right kind of, using latest technology, position the right kind of product to our consumers. I think increasingly we are seeing a lot of the product manufacturers going direct to consumers, and there is a reason for that. And this reason probably is more in the West and less in the East. In India, where they still have a lot of say, there's a big channel, but in the West, where bulk of the retailing has been taken over by big players. So basically, manufacturers are completely dependent on big players to for their sales. They are not able to. They are not able to sell. They don't have a say on what the consumers want. They don't have a lot of visibility and they don't have a lot of say in the channel. And this is a good way of actually accessing consumers directly. Also, they face a big threat from brands that retailers are developing, because today we have private levels of retailers which are becoming very big brands for manufacturers, and hence it's a big, I mean, it is a big opportunity for manufacturers to go directly to consumers, and they will probably use this channel quite significantly to go reach out to consumers directly. Now, having said that, will we go and even go to a mass personalization to a level where people start designing their own products? There are some products like cosmetics, shoes, apparel, which we have seen some, and many of them probably high end. I think at this stage, there are some examples of people designing their own products, maybe bikes, cars, in some cases cosmetics, shoes, etc. These products are still not mass, but there is could be a time, maybe not in the next 5 years, but maybe 10, 15 years down, where making something unique for yourself, demanding something unique for yourself could be mainstream. And this is where retailers need to then look at what kind of technologies emerge, because you will probably have a 3D printing or some other technologies which will enable that. And that will help players to actually serve this kind of consumers. At this stage, they're fairly narrow, fairly niche, but something to watch out for. Finally, coming to loyalty. So, are consumers loyal? So, if you look at the whole omni-channel experience, I spoke in the beginning where you go to a store, look at the price, then go online, search for the price and buy. So, is there real loyalty? But if you speak to, I mean, if you look at a loyalty survey that EY did recently, 87% retailers felt that loyalty strategy was very critical. I think 77% retailers also said that customers are no longer loyal, and I'm not surprised, because the point is the loyalty programs or the loyalty methodology have not kept up to where the consumer needs have gone. I mean, today, if you look at the way loyalty is being given, it's the same point system or card system what was existing probably for the last several decades. But if you look at the way loyalty spend has changed, I mean, we had a time when loyalty customers used to contribute huge amount of sales. I think that probably is not sustainable anymore, because if you have somebody else, a competitor, for example, which provides an alternate. Some other retailer providing the same product at either through a better service, better delivery, better price, chance of getting disrupted are very high. Why? Because today there is tremendous amount of information available in the net. Earlier, this level of information was not available. Today, it is, and hence it makes this extremely important to understand. Or maybe we say that loyalty doesn't exist anymore, and try and disrupt this whole. A retailer could look at saying, well, loyalty is not relevant anymore. Then what do we do? How do we? What assortment should we provide? What kind of price point do we give? What kind of consumers do we have? So basically, your consumer itself becomes a channel. In this case, you have an order given by the consumer. It comes from home. It's fulfilled by a retailer either through the store or through the DC or through any means. They have multiple channels and they serve the consumer. This could be a future of how the consumer behavior happens. So, are retailers ready to adapt to the increased complexity? And I think this is the question that probably has dogged everyone over the last 5-6 years. Retailers have been a little slow to adapt to increased complexities. They have not understood the way on how to deal with this change. And the change has been relentless. It has been pretty large and significant. So I think some areas that the retailers need to consider now is they have anywhere, everywhere. It is no longer 11 o'clock I open the store and by 9 o'clock I shut down. I have to be available at all the times through other channels. How do I keep pace of changing technology? We had a great web revolution, and suddenly we have the mobile commerce with huge penetration of 4G. And am I ready for doing that? Because probably people will move from web to mobile much faster rate than they move to the web. What kind of talent do we have? Do we have people who are able to leverage this, understand this, and make use of this? What kind of supply chain? I think one of the big points I have is most retailers, if we look at last 4 to 5 years, have invested tremendous amount of capital and time on understanding the consumer, making good website, forgetting that actually what matters in omnichannel is actually a lot more is the back end, lot more is technology, lot more is talent. So just fixing the front end because you give a promise and then you're not able to deliver. So there are very few retailers who are able to deliver on the promise made in the front end, and this is the crux of making a success in omnichannel. So not only have a great website with great products, but also have a great supply chain, great channel relationships, great logistics, so that you are even able to deliver the product. And if something goes wrong, a great customer service that is able to actually undo the wrong. Because don't forget, in an omnichannel environment, unlike a brick and mortar environment, bad word of mouth could have a significant impact in business. It could bring business models down. Even one individual can have huge, and we have seen these examples several times now across countries where individuals, or there is one person who badmouths a product and that has a significant impact on sales. So I close my presentation with probably something that Charles Darwin said in 1809, and it's so true today as we discussed today. He said that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the one that's most responsive to change. And I think if I look at the future, retailers have to be the most responsive to change, and I don't see any reason why brick and mortar cannot flourish on an omnichannel avatar in the future. Thanks to all of you, and it was a pleasure having all of you in the webinar today, and maybe I could take some questions now.
Yes, sir. We have the first question. Sir, I saw the cartoon you showed on showrooming during your presentation.
Right.
Just to understand who is the ultimate winner in that situation, the customer or retailer?
See, I think as I mentioned that ultimately in life it has to be win-win for everybody. But today, if you look at omni-channel e-commerce, the person who is winning is really the consumer, because they have been making the most of the deals that are available. But at some stage, you need to understand that that's not sustainable. I mean, it has to win-win for the offline retailer. It has to be win-win for the online retailer. So I think right now it is pretty much the consumer.
Yeah. So the next one is supply chain is the key to any retail format, especially is in omni-channel. How do you justify this? Justify this, sir.
No, absolutely. I think supply chain is not just the key. I mean, it is the heart of successful omnichannel. And if there is one aspect that, see, let me give you an example. If you, and I'm talking, profitable e-commerce, so profitable omnichannel. Today, let's say there is a website where is just one sentence that iPhone X available for, let's say, 60,000 rupees. That company doesn't need supply chain or doesn't need great site to sell. Okay, it will sell everything. But that's not what we're talking here. We're talking of a profitable model where you have the right quality of not just product, but the right level of customer service. And without a good supply chain, today when we are expecting, look at the paradigm change. There was a time, I remember, maybe it was 10 years back, and I owned in this retailer, we used to work with them. And we were saying that we found that they're losing a lot of sales because the replenishment was not happening on time. So we said that why don't you do one thing? Why don't you, and this is fashion business. So why don't you replenish twice in a week instead of once in a week, because that will help you sell more. And to move from once in a week to twice in a week to replenish its stores from a DC was a huge affair and a big task. Today we have consumers who want to get the product delivered in hours. So look at the paradigm shift in supply chain. It's tremendous. And today, if an offline player says that no, I will deliver after 3 days, 4 days, then it won't work. And that's where I said that backend is very, very crucial to successful omnichannel. It's not a matter of a great front end and great customer experience on the web or the app. It's also is equally important to deliver to the promise, and that's where supply chain comes in.
Yes. Next question is from Amit Mehra. Is Indian rural market ready for omnichannel, or still brick and mortar is the only option for retailing?
See, rural is, I would say there are two parts of being ready. One is the infrastructure, one is the consumer. Let's look at both. Now, from an infra, there are parts of infra which are not ready. I think the tech infra is probably better ready today. If you look at the 4G penetration, it's reasonably good, or the mobile penetration. To that extent, it is available probably. I think where we are not ready is the logistics and supply chain, which I mentioned is very crucial, or not as ready. The other big part where readiness is important is trust. See, don't forget that tomorrow something goes wrong. If you're in a big city, worst case scenario, you go to the brand, you go to the store. I mean, you are very educated to be able to go get the service done. Maybe in rural areas that is still a bit lacking. So there is that element of trust and knowledge, and which is necessary. So this is where their readiness needs to improve. But India is a huge market. I mean, we are not talking of rural areas where the roads are not good or communication are not. There's a large part of India which is still available for e-commerce, and uh, I mean there are many categories of products which are available to e-commerce even in small towns and rural areas. So this is a big opportunity even for those sectors. Not to the scale of which we can service the big cities yet, but still in their own way, fairly important for, or fairly meeting the needs of those set of consumers. Yes.
Next question is from Sagar. What if we use dynamic pricing in retails instead of static pricing? That's more customer oriented.
See, retail, I think, I mean, I would say online retail uses dynamic pricing to an extent. The offline pricing, the only challenge with dynamic pricing is that we have an MRP law in India, and I think dynamic pricing somehow doesn't sit very well with the MRP laws. That is one. Second thing is, I would say that as a retailer, if there are 10 things that I need to do, there are many more important things to do than dynamic pricing. And I would not necessarily, unless it's a problem for that particular retailer or the particular segment. I think there are many other ways to work on it. Now, can we do smart pricing, which is probably targeting the price points better? I think it will be relatively easier. A very dynamic which changes by the hour, which changes by the surfing habit is probably difficult to do in product because of MRP. In services, it can be done. And product, probably if you buy airline tickets, you realize that depending on the timing, depending on location, probably pricing changes. So it's already there to a large extent.
Next question is from Isha Rathod. Which are the key trends on loyalty programs you see or suggest?
Yeah, I think in the loyalty programs, to my mind, there hasn't been any big change, barring putting what is there offline into digital. I don't think fundamentally, at least I haven't seen, maybe that is happening that I'm not aware of, but I haven't seen any fundamental radical thinking in loyalty programs yet. So there are two classes of retailers, one and both of them have their very strong views. So one set of retailers believe that let's not discriminate amongst consumers, let's not bother about loyalty, let's give the person the best deal on what he or she is buying. So they don't have loyalty program. DMart doesn't have loyalty, Walmart doesn't have loyalty program. On the other hand, there are players like a Tesco and many others who strongly believe in loyalty programs, who spend a couple of percentage points probably on the top line on actually running this program. So very innovative, targeted, loyalty programs to consumers. But fundamentally, at least I'm not aware of a big shift, barring yes, doing more analytics on the loyalty program. Fundamentally, the point-driven, freebie-driven kind of loyalty program still continue it is either through on specific occasions, specific timings of the day, specific days of the week, specific set of consumer. It's pretty much quite standard. It just moved to more digital. That's it.
Next question from Anuradha Narsiman. In an omni-channel environment, who owns the customer? Brand owner, online retailer, offline retailer?
No, see, ultimately, I mean, the person who is the customer is the person who is buying at the end of the day, and it could be in some cases, probably in most cases, the end consumer who, I mean, I would treat, but ultimately the end consumer drives all the demand. So at the end, they are the buyers and they are the consumers. The others will all be basically channels. I mean, they're the channels of, I think, passing on products or passing on, cash or whatever. I mean, it's an exchange mechanism, but the ultimate is the buyer, the person who buys and consumes the service.
Next question. Food has also been one of the largest segment in India's retail sector and is, according to the Union Minister for Food Processing Industries, expected to reach 895 billion by 2020. What is the role that omnichannel can play here? What is the key mantra for success in modern retailing? And where do you see 3 years?
Right. So in food and groceries, rightly said, one of the biggest areas of retailing, and it's not surprising because as the people's incomes are low, they spend bulk of their wallet on food. So that's the reason food and grocery is the biggest retail. But this is one which is interesting. Now, food and groceries has a few characteristics which make it the most amenable to omnichannel, not pure play, online retail. The first is low margin. Food is a very low margin business. So if you imagine if you have to deliver products of a certain size to somebody's household, I mean if you don't, if it is food and grocery, pretty much you made a loss unless the ticket size of a certain ticket size of certain value. Similarly, can you deliver from a central DC into stores? No, it's very expensive, and delivery costs alone can outdo the whole model. However, if you have omni-channel and you are able to find a way of either having small locations along with the stores, somewhere near the stores, or using the store stock itself to deliver, that can be a doable model. It is complex, but it is probably doable profitably, and that's one of the reasons why Amazon has been trying food and grocery in US for a long time, not been very successful. Now we hear all the biggies have entered food and grocery business. It will be a good thing to watch, but in my view, this is a pure omni-channel business. Very difficult to do purely online.
Yes. Next question is from Yogesh Kumar. Are there any possibilities when the nearest store could be treated as cluster DC for e-commerce website to keep the users to keep to keep the use of their investments?
So I think it's already being done. I mean, again, I won't name this, but it's not a DC, but they are using their stores as delivery points for sure. Can this be converted to a kind of a DC? It all depends on, see, ultimately it's a matter of economics. So depending on which city you are, what are the rentals, what is the space required, it can be. And probably they'll be those micro DC, mini DC, whatever you call. And it will probably be relevant for items where the delivery has to be faster, because if you have 24 hours to deliver, you still don't need in the bank in the most expensive neighborhood. So you could still probably keep it on the outskirts of the city. Now with GST coming in, at least that whole putting in DC at least becomes much more easier. So it could happen, and it will happen, as I said, depending on the economics.
Next question is from Jayanta. While I agree that loyalty is something that is no more holding customers, but at the same time, do you agree that the brand value and ethics plays a bigger role in retaining your customers?
No, absolutely. So I think in fact, sometimes while we say that loyalty is no longer very important, but don't forget, if you look at Amazon, and I come back to that example a couple of times, Amazon Prime is probably one of the biggest successes, right? Why? So I think it's the execution of loyalty that has to be thought through. Today, as I mentioned earlier, today loyalty has been all about point systems. It's become life has become very complex for us. Now, how easy it is to keep track of, so what benefit am I getting, how am I executing loyalty is crucial. So, and that's where I agree that branding is one part. Trust is the most important part, because if I am buying from you, if I am very sure today that I make a purchase, three things I need to be very sure of. One is that you will not cheat me. For example, what happens if I start over depending on somebody, the supplier takes us for a ride. I mean, this is a typical experience which people have in business or any partner. So I won't get cheated. I'll get the best deal every time. Second is, if I have a problem, then I should have a very no questions asked kind of return, refund, whatever it means. I think if these things are met, I don't see any reason why loyalty cannot play a much bigger role. But unfortunately, it has not been executed as well, especially on an omni-channel environment yet.
Next question is also from the loyalty program. It is from Anup Mehrotra. Worldwide, many retailers use MVNOs as loyalty program. With Indian government allowing MVNOs in India, do you think that retailers should use MVNOs or MVNOs for loyalty?
See, they could, and I said that I don't want to have, I'm not looking at loyalty as that micro. So it all depends on who are your consumers and what do they need. If they need MVNOs, great, go ahead and do it. There may be a little bit of a middle class, lower middle class kind of consumers. If that works for them, But again, this is where understanding who is your consumer, what does he or she want, and then tailoring it and providing is very important. So yes, it could work depending on the situation and the consumer set of a particular retailer.
Next question is from Ram Agarwal. Is cash and carry stores like Metro and Walmart retail may disrupt in same way, or it is different?
See, they will disrupt probably slightly. I mean, I would say that look, they have to adapt to the same technologies as anybody else. Will they be? I mean, the speed and pace of change may be a little lesser than, let's say, B2C, because they're dealing with merchants who are B2B primarily. But at the same time, don't forget that the merchant is also a consumer for some of its products, and they would like to compare. I mean, today, if I'm able to go online and buy, there is no reason why they wouldn't demand a Metro or a Walmart to also provide those kind of platforms to buy, which I'm sure are available anyway, and have the payments routed through them. All those convenience they will demand. But the extent at which customization and personalization needs to be done, probably in B2C might be, or the complexity will probably be much bigger than B2B players. To that extent, probably, and this is my personal, with that extent, they are relatively better off.
Next question is from George. In a omni-channel retail, will a collaborative model develop?
Omnichannel has to be all about collaboration, because what will happen is at some point you will realize you don't have all the products. I mean, you need partners for logistics, you need partners for supply chain. You will probably sometimes even need partners for delivery also. I mean, or even the product assortment also. So there will be some collaboration, which is hard. I think in the Indian environment or amongst retailer, it's hard. Maybe the collaboration will happen through mom and pop stores, which we see often. It's it has been it's not a process per se. It is done very in specific situations by mom and pop, where they don't have the product, but they'll go fetch it from the neighboring store and send it. So it could be even that kind of tactical collaboration. It could be collaboration between and of, which we have seen, some of the online players collaborating with Hypercity or another Tepila or somebody to provide them online access. It could be collaboration with that. It could be collaboration technology, for example. Some of these tech players might actually have join hands with the retailers to provide some kind of service or capability to their IT. So it could be in multiple ways, but there will be collaboration. I think the world has moved to a level where if you want to have everything on your own, if you want to do everything on your own, that's not the most sustainable model anymore.
Next question from Ranganathan. What will be the future of small-sized FMCG companies in this channel?
See, small, I mean, if you look at the Indian market, it's so large that small-sized FMCG companies, as I, anyway, have a huge road ahead. But what omnichannel or modern retail could do, and again, this is subject to supply chain. So I'm always, whatever I'm saying on the business side is subject to caveated by what kind of supply chain they have. So that they could reach out to much beyond what they could otherwise. So there are two options available really. For example, take a supplier who is a small time or who is a small player in, let's say, Maharashtra, and tomorrow they ties up with one of the big brands or retailers and they could go national through the channel. That's one option. The second option is they could deliver. They could actually be on somebody's website delivering to other parties, provided there's a capability to deliver, or provided the website takes on the capability to deliver. So it's possible to go national or to go beyond what they were serving right now through these channels.
So the last question. Please explain the role of new generation digital technologies in adoption of omnichannel strategy. How can it facilitate?
See, the biggest role probably now is actually the web technologies and the mobile technology, which will do the very basic stuff of actually taking in the order and helping deliver and then facilitating the engagement with the consumer. That's probably the most basic. 4G, be it 3G, 2G also is fine. The next set of technology which will have a big impact is trying to understand the consumer's trends, which is where we have analytics kind of capability that will come in. The next and probably the most important or probably the most futuristic is what we see already some players doing is moving into more artificial intelligence, predicting customer behavior, understanding what products will sell, actually managing supply chain through those, which probably few of the pure play online players have achieved to a large extent. So those are the kind of technologies which will start impacting retail big time in the future. And of course, not to uh, talk of deliveries through drones and all that. I mean, it used to be pretty fanciful a few years back. It's becoming more and more real time. As long as the framework is put across on how to use them, maybe even those things will become more mainstream than we are seeing right now. And don't forget, I mean, when we say drones, we always think of a drone delivering to somebody's house, which looks very far-fetched and not very scalable. But imagine what if there's a drone which delivers, let's say, from a city to city, from a DC to one hub in the city. That itself can transform delivery timings and delivery capability significantly. What if a drone could, let's say, pick up 2 tons of goods and deliver to a central hub within a city, and so my DC is just outside, and that itself can be a huge thing.
So it's time to wrap up this webinar. Thank you, Pinaki Ranjan Mishra, partner and national leader, retail and customer products, Ernst & Young, for the webinar on the topic, Is Omnichannel Retailing the New Normal? Dear attendees, unfortunately, we won't be able to take all the questions due to time constraints. If you have any other questions, please send them at editor@etretail.com. It was an engaging and insightful talk, and hope all the participants have enjoyed the session. Thank you everyone for joining us. Goodbye.